Okay, we'll get started. Welcome everyone. This is the presentation on the National Sustainable Agriculture Standard, LEO-4000, and it's an overview of Section 6, the economic section of the standard. And provide an introduction that I will do, and then we'll have Don Hodge, who's the agricultural specialist with the U.S. EPA's San Francisco Regional Office, go through the details on the economic section of the standard. So Leonardo Academy is a nonprofit organization. We are dedicated to empowering the competitive market to advance sustainability by developing strategies and voluntary standards and helping participants and clients use these strategies and standards to succeed. We're using the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI, process for standard development. We're an ANSI accredited standard developer, and the standard committee has several categories of participants: producers, users, environmental, academic and government, and others. There are also observers who are not voting members of the process. Also commenters in the public comment process are participations in the overall process for the development of standards under the ANSI process. LEO-4000 is the first comprehensive national sustainable agriculture standard to be developed in the United States. And our strategy for the standard is to create a clear and comprehensive standard for sustainable agriculture that provides guidance to producers, metrics for achievement, third-party verification, simplified sustainability reporting, clear communication up and down the supply chain from producers to consumers, and branding from the consumer to the producer level. The objective of the standard is to empower the marketplace to transform agriculture towards sustainability. To do this, it empowers producers to clearly be able to document and communicate their sustainability achievements, and to empower buyers to use that kind of information to select the producers that they want to buy things from. This empowers both producers and buyers to be drivers in increasing sustainability in agriculture with their actions. What's the scope? The scope at this point is plant crops. In the future, we'll develop a part of the standard that will address animal production as well. It's important to remember that the standard covers both food crops and other agriculture products like fibers. Performance measurement strategy in LEO-4000. The standard strives to use performance-based metrics wherever practical rather than practice-based metrics. Using performance-based metrics lets all of the people involved in the process and the competitive market to identify new and better ways to achieve the metrics so that performance improves over time. Basic structure of LEO-4000, there are 4 categories of achievement. General sort of sets the overall stage for sustainable actions in the production area. And then it addresses environmental, economic, and social as well. Drilling down a little bit, the way the standard is structured is there are objectives that are things that the standard is hoping to drive achievement of, and then a criterion, which are subcategories of the objectives, and then indicators, which are specific indicators as to the achievement of the various criteria. And indicators can either be required or optional at each level of the standard. The structure, there are 4 levels of performance: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. To earn each performance level, the producer must earn all of the, or accomplish all of the required indicators, and then meet a specific number of the optional indicators. And the number of optional indicators and the level of prerequisites that have been met determine which level of performance the producer reaches. Key to putting all of this together is the producer sustainability plan. It's the organizing element for coordinating all of the activities for achieving the desired level of sustainable performance. And here we get to the overview of the economic objectives, criteria, and indicators for LEO-4000, and I will turn the presentation over to Don Hodge.
Well, I have to get myself off mute, I guess, but can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for inviting me to make this presentation today. I very much appreciate the opportunity to relay to this group what the Economics Criteria Subcommittee has been working on during the development of this standards process. As Michael mentioned, I am with the agriculture program in US EPA's Region 9 office in San Francisco, and we have been involved in the past in promoting standards for environmental performance in agriculture that are voluntary and that can hopefully reward agricultural producers for their efforts on environmental performance. And so I was very happy that our management allowed me to participate as an observer in this process. I was originally focused more on the structure of the standard and the process, and became the interim co-chair of the economic subcommittee when we lost our very qualified chair to a death in his family. So I've been trying to fill in since then, and again, I'm just happy to be able to relay the thoughts of a group of people that have put these criteria and indicators together. Before I move on to the objectives and the more detailed part of the economics criteria, I want to talk a little bit about the principles that we tried to embody in our work. We we understand, our assumptions are that professional agricultural producers are business managers, and that they feel the economic imperative to learn, to earn a livelihood, and just to stay in business. So we understand that there is a lot of focus on economics in agricultural production. What we tried to do is to embody sustainability principles in those economic considerations, and those principles are quite often understood to include an extended time horizon, looking at not just the short-term economic results, but also middle, if not long-term results, and also looking at the interconnections between the different aspects of sustainability, between the economic and social aspects and the economic and environmental aspects, which are sometimes called the triple bottom line in sustainability accounting terminology. And also looking at the interconnections among the different agricultural operations, which are sometimes captured in the prices that are reflected in a market economy, but sometimes aren't. And when they aren't, they're often considered externalities to the market, and but nevertheless they can impose real costs and sometimes reduce costs for agricultural operations. So our objectives tried to and criteria try to incorporate those considerations as well. And finally, we understand that if you're looking at the long term, you need to be able to adapt and survive various types of shocks. Sometimes economic, sometimes natural. For instance, we're experiencing an extended drought here in the West Coast, and various parts of the country have been experiencing that for quite some time. So you need a certain amount of resilience to remain in agriculture over the long term. And one of the primary tools for resilience, as we understand it, is diversification of various types. And so our criteria and objectives try to capture that aspect also. And I think I'll be able to point out some of these connections as we move through here. So now looking at the objectives that the economic section embodies. We looked at the scope of business planning and reporting because we understand that while agricultural producers are businessmen and women, there's a range of adoption of what might be considered standard business practices of planning and accounting and reporting. And we, again, looking at the long term, tried to incorporate the continuity of a specific operation as well as the continuity of just agriculture in a region, in an area, and the ability for agriculture to continue given sometimes the economic imperative to convert agricultural land uses to other land uses and considerations along those lines. Again, we see risk and resilience management showing up here, and then over on the right column, several factors that have to do with the long-term management of agricultural land, and whether or not it's owned or under some other form of operational arrangement. And finally, it's hard to stay in business. It's hard to remain a viable economic entity if you're not producing a quality product, and especially that can affect the safety of the food system and the products of an agricultural operation. That's of critical importance given some of the events of recent years in terms of issues with aspects of the agricultural food supply. So we want to take that into account as well. Moving on to the first objective then, in a little more detail, looking at the scope of business planning and reporting. We again are trying to not add more burdens to an agricultural producer's daily life and operations, but we are trying to encourage them to adopt what are considered in most fields just standard business practices that allow for the analysis and understanding of how your operation is performing in order to make better business decisions over the long term. So that's what this is about. There are really only two criteria that we've developed, and you'll find that as you go through the standard in more detail, that a lot of our criteria and a lot of the indicators for our criteria are optional. And again, that's because we feel like there is an economic imperative in agriculture. Where we did require certain indicators, it is often around these standard business practices of planning and reporting. And many of the others we are suggesting they're optional, and we think they can lead to better economic sustainability in agriculture, but we're leaving it up to individual producers to choose to adopt them because they see the value of specific criteria. Moving on to the next objective, the comprehensiveness of the PSP. Again, we're trying to incorporate a longer time horizon and to try to make sure that the The producer sustainability plan incorporates the various aspects of an operation, social and environmental, that can affect their economic performance. So we have 5 indicators under this objective, but again, many of them are optional, at least at the more basic levels. Moving on to the let's see, to this example again. So you'll see that we're asking that the producers include a financial plan at the most basic level, because it's hard to understand how your operation is performing without you know, some basic financial planning. And we would like, at least at as you move up in the achievement levels, to ensure that that plan, or to encourage that the plan incorporates the various aspects of sustainability, social and environmental, as well as economic activities, and then provides for the succession of the operation and looks at the operation over longer and longer time horizons. But again, much of that is only required at the higher levels of achievement, and it's only encouraged. And there's some value in adopting those at the lower levels in terms of reaching higher achievement levels under the standard. But at least at this point, depending on the comments that we get back, we are encouraging them but not requiring them at the lower levels. Moving on to the next objective. Again, looking at the long-term continuity of the operation, we're suggesting that there are ways that producers can plan for the succession of their operation and for the continuation of agriculture in their area. So I'm on objective 6.2 here. There we go. And so again, we have 3 criteria under this objective. And the first one just ensures that the producer sustainability plan incorporates some planning for succession, so to ensure that there's someone to take over an agricultural operation when the current management decides to retire, which is happening in a lot of agriculture. We also suggest that agriculture needs to prepare for that, the wave of retirements that are sometimes predicted, and so we encourage, but we don't require agricultural operations to provide some form of mentoring to help new farmers start out. We also, even at the lower levels, require some consideration of how an operation is going to maintain its own land in agriculture. So some kind of agricultural land preservation planning. But we don't require any specific form, any specific legal form of that. That would be optional depending on the needs of a given operation and manager. So yeah, so you're seeing here that the beginning farmer development criterion that I was discussing, and then on the next page you'll see the agricultural land preservation criterion that I was mentioning. Again, many of these are optional, especially at the lower levels, but in order to maintain an agricultural operation over the long term, we think that these are important objectives to keep in mind, and so they're embodied in the standard. Now moving on to Objective 6.3, we're looking again at resilience to various shocks that can occur in agriculture. And again, the main tool for addressing resilience, for developing resilience, as we understand it, is diversification. And there are many ways to diversify an operation, and our criteria look at several of those. So moving on to the first of those, criterion 6.3.2, we're looking at diversification of cropping systems. So for instance, out here on the West Coast, many operations have moved fairly heavily into perennial crops, into longer-term perennial crops, such as almond growing. And they're finding that in the current circumstances where water is in a very short supply, that that may not have been the best economic move to grow only long-term perennial crops because they need a constant supply of water. Whereas if you had a more diversified operation that incorporated, say, some long-term crops but also some short-term crops, you might be able to fallow some part of your operation and maintain water supplies to the very, the critical long-term crops. So again, we see diversification in cropping systems as a way to help address, in this case, a natural phenomenon. But also, prices in the market go up and down, and some crops may produce a better financial return in some years than others, and then in different years you'll see another set of market conditions. So by having a number of different crops coming online, it's possible to take advantage of the different pricing circumstances that are available in a given year, without being totally dependent on one crop. So again, we're encouraging diversification as a tool for long-term resilience. Moving on to criterion 6.3.3, this is another aspect of diversification that we think can help an agricultural operation maintain its resilience for the long term. Here we're talking not so much about the specific crops that are produced but what an operation can do with those crops to increase the products that they can put on the market by adding value to the crops that they produce, and sometimes by providing other services such as agrotourism, which is a worthwhile part of many operations in areas out here on the West Coast, at least, and I think more widespread also. Looking at criterion 6.3.4, there are developing now certain markets in ecosystem services, and by participating in those markets, you're basically providing another product as well as the agricultural products, the crops that you produce, or the products that you create through adding value to those agricultural crops. You are providing a service to the broader public by maintaining or improving an ecosystem service. And some mechanisms are just now being developed and coming online that can actually provide an economic return to producers that engage in those activities. So we're, again, just saying this is another way to diversify your operation and provide yet another crop or another product that can provide some economic return that can help you stay in business over the long term, and at the same time provide some sustainability benefits to the larger environment. Moving on to criterion 6.3.5. Again, this is where we're trying to emphasize the interconnections between various aspects of sustainability and of agricultural sustainability, so that by managing some of the risks to your personnel, your staff, and other people in the community around your operation, you're protecting the economic performance of your operation as well. So risk management practices can include many things. Health insurance and is a popular topic these days, but there are other social risk management practices, education, training, that are well documented in the social criteria of this standard. What we're trying to do is just point out those connections here and show that by a certain amount of focus on the social side of your operation, you're also helping to sustain your economic performance as well. Moving on to criterion 6.3.6, this is the same idea. By managing your ecological risk, you're also helping to protect your economic performance. And this actually, although the scope of the standard in general remains within the farm gate, as they say, it's addressing the operations of a specific farm. This also addresses, to a certain extent, the effects of a given operation on the other operations in its watershed or in its community, because if there are ecological practices that affect other farms in your area, whether or not that's captured in the market economy in the prices that you pay or your neighbors pay for the inputs to their operation, it does, or it can have an effect on them, and their operation can have an effect on you as an operator. So we think it's to the benefit of the entire agricultural community if all of the individual producers are at least aware of the potential effects of their operations on their neighbors. So this is one criterion where we try to encourage them to take a little bit of a broader view and to ensure that practices that they may use that could affect the ecology of their area are as beneficial as possible to the entire area. Moving on to Objective 6.4, what we had heard, what we understood as we were developing these objectives and criteria, is that sustainability considerations, these considerations of planning and management over the long term, are easier or perhaps more natural when you own your property, but that many people are not in a position to own the property to own the land that they farm. And so we're looking at ways to incorporate sustainability considerations when ownership is not the form of land tenure that's available. So we looked at ways to at least account for the length of tenure of a piece of property even when it's not under ownership. So if looking at criterion 6.4.1, if it's owner operated, we assume that will produce the greatest attention to the long term and to investing for the long term. But looking at 6.4.2, we said, well, if you can't own your own property, then we would like to encourage longer leases because, again, that encourages longer-term investments in the sustainability of the operation, which I think can accrue economic benefits for the operator as well. So this criterion just basically calculates, it's a acreage-weighted average lease length. It just calculates the amount of, or the length of tenure for a piece of property when it's not owned. And we encourage, to the extent possible, longer leases. Looking at objective 6.5, again, when you own your property, then it's your decision as to which economic and social, as well as, environmental and social, as well as economic criteria you would like to apply to your operation. But it can be a little bit more difficult when your form of land tenure is a lease, because then you have to work with the landowner who has an interest in your economic performance, because that is what ensures that they will get some return on the risk that they take when they lease out their property. So it often requires a very cooperative relationship with the landowner and the lessee. And what we're trying to encourage here is that the lease terms actually embody that arrangement between the operator and the owner of the land, and that they embody the types of practices that sometimes have some economic cost, even though they have environmental or social benefits over the long term, and ideally would result in economic benefits over the long term, if not immediately. To the extent that those types of practices can be supported or included in the lease terms, we think that will improve long-term economic sustainability for the operation. So this objective and this criterion tries to address that aspect. And looking at criterion 6.5.2, again, this is where we're trying to embody in the lease a sharing of the risk between the landowner and the operator in terms of these types of long-term considerations. And finally, looking at objective 6.6, again, it's hard to emphasize, to overemphasize the importance of product quality and food safety in agricultural production. So again, it's difficult to remain a viable economic entity if the market loses faith in your product. So we think it's critical that operations adopt a food safety management process that ensures the safety and quality of their product. And there are a number out there that are required by various different entities. So we don't think we're adding to the burden of on an operation. We think this is going to be required anyway, but we would like to see operators get credit for the work that they do in terms of our sustainability accounting system under this standard. So that is the basic rundown of the description, or the basic description of the sustainability criteria and indicators, and I'd be happy to take any questions on that before we go on to, before I turn it back over to Michael and we go on to finish describing how this standards process would work.
Yes, this is Mike. If you would like to ask a question, please type it into the chat box, and Mary Reams on the Leonardo Academy staff will read off the questions we receive.
We don't have any yet.
Okay, well, I guess what I'd like to do while we're waiting to see if there are any questions, I'd like to introduce the committee members and others who've been actively involved in developing the standard who are on the call today, and let them make any comments they might have. I'll just work my way down the list here.
Mike, we actually do have a question now.
Well, why don't you proceed then?
Thomas Reddick has a question. I've unmuted you, Thomas. Why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Sure, Don. I'm wondering, I've been seeing a lot of traffic on the Food Safety Modernization Act's impact on the use of manure and other fertilizers, and how are we going to reconcile the mandatory use of manure at the platinum level with the details relating to your food safety audit? I mean, is that going to be an irreconcilable conflict, or how do you see that happening?
While we were in the process of developing our criteria and indicators, the Food Safety Modernization Act was still under development, and the regulations around that were still under development. So we did not incorporate that directly into our criteria and indicators. And I expect that we will get comments on that potential conflict as this process moves forward, and I expect we will have to address that during the revision that will follow the comment period.
Thanks.
Jesse Singerman would like to have us clarify the voting process and for the Standards Committee and the timing of the vote.
The vote is in parallel with the public comment process, and it was announced on December 6th, and votes are due by April 6th, and that's the voting process. The public comments and the issues raised by votes that include comments will be addressed in a parallel fashion. Did that answer your question, Jesse?
Yes, it did.
Okay, thank you for your question. Are there any other questions? Okay, well, I'll go back to...
No, we don't have any other questions at the moment, Mike.
Okay, well, what I'll do is, again, introduce committee members. Two have spoken up already, Tom Reddick and Jesse Singerman. And we also have Bill Wolf on the phone, and I just unmuted you, Bill, if you'd like to make any comments.
Well, thank you for all your efforts. I think the comment about the conflict with FSMA is an example of the speed at which things change. So I think, you know, this comment period really is important for people to submit suggestions for improvement. I think one of the biggest challenges that I see is having a sort of Reader's Digest version of some of the key criteria and identifying which criteria could most easily be selected out for ease of adoption. Because I think it's a great document, but it's a little overwhelming when you start to talk with a producer about it.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, just for clarification, you said April 6th for the vote. Was it supposed to be March 6th, or has the date changed?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. March 6th. You're correct. That's correct. Thank you for correcting me.
We've got another question. How does the standard reward producers who address economic responsibility regarding the use of money, i.e. donations, community support, etc.?
I
don't believe. Why don't you take this?
Okay, I was just going to say that that is another area where I think there's an overlap between the social standard of the social criteria and the economic criteria, and we only tried to capture that in terms of saying, well, we'd like to give credit for the social criteria that producers apply under the assumption that will have a long-term beneficial economic effect as well. But we did not specify exactly which ones those criteria should be. But I think if you look at the social criteria, you'll find that covered there.
Thank you.
Thomas Reddick has another question. Tom, you're unmuted now.
Tom, we can't hear you. Are you muting yourself?
I guess I have to unmute myself. There, I'm green. Sorry. I think we should at least put it to the committee whether we should extend this comment period by 30 days, because there are plenty of people reading it, and it's exceptionally long and involved. And I'm getting a lot of feedback from folks who would like to comment but are having trouble getting through it all because of all the different meetings that they've got to go to, and particularly the producers. They're all tied up in their board meetings, and these only end around March 2, and then you got, what, a couple days to get back into it. So I think putting another 30 days on it would allow at least the producer community to have a little more time to digest it. But I won't leave that for you today. I just suggest we panel up I know I can make a motion on your rules to tee up a committee vote, and I think consider this so moved.
Okay, well, thank you for the suggestion, Tom. I will confer with some of the other committee members, and it seems like a reasonable idea to me, but I don't want to surprise people, so I'll confer with people.
Do we still have a coordinating council or something?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Mike, we've got another question. What's the scope of the committee vote on March 6th, i.e. what are they voting on?
They're voting on the approval of the standard, and there are a variety of ways they can vote. They can vote yes, they can vote no with no comments. If they want to vote, if they want specific comments to be addressed, they need to include those comments. And then those comments will be addressed in a very similar fashion to the comments that we get from the public commenters. And then just to follow out the process, the committee will identify the proposed solutions that it likes for each of the comments received, whether they're comments from public commenters or from other committee members. And then the committee, once that's decided, the other members of the committee, any members of the committee who had negative votes with reasons, will have the opportunity to decide whether they want to change their vote based on the changes that were made to the standard based on the comments. So are there any other questions? The next committee member here on the list is Grace Gershuni, who's the secretary of the committee and also the co-chair of the environmental subcommittee. Grace, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Not really. I'm always very impressed with the clarity and good reasoning of the economic subcommittee. So congratulations, Don. It's a great job. And I would also add my agreement to extending the deadline for another 30 days. And thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment, and we'll go down the list.
Thank you, Grace, and I should probably add a couple of things that maybe I should have mentioned earlier, and that is that I see my role on this subcommittee as mainly trying to facilitate and integrate the input from a number of very well-qualified committee members. So I would relay your thanks to all of them. And also, I should probably say that I do really appreciate my management allowing me to work on this process, but as of this point, EPA has not endorsed the outcome, and so my comments today have been entirely personal and not necessarily reflecting the agency's position.
Thank you, Don.
Sure.
And Jesse, I'll unmute you again if you have anything else you'd like to add.
I just want to thank Don for his overview of the economic standard, which I worked on this committee, and I particularly appreciated your intro, Don, so putting this in context, because I think that helps all the pieces of the standard to put it into context of what we're trying to achieve. So thank you for your presentation today, and thank you, Michael, for all the work that you and the other members of your team are putting in to push this.
Excuse me, Jesse, are you very close to your phone? It's pretty hard to hear you.
I'm right here. Can you hear me now?
That's a little better.
Okay. I just was thanking Don for his introduction and putting the economic standard into context, which I think helps with all the pieces of the standard, understand the kind of big picture that we were going for. And thanking you, Michael, and the other members of your team for all the work you're putting in now to finalize this and get it done. So that's all.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to go back to Thomas Reddick, who has another question for you.
Okay.
This is, I guess, for Michael, but maybe Don knows. What happened to Mr. Keegwin and his alternate, who were EPA representatives on the committee? When did they actually leave, and does anyone know why?
I am not under the, actually I didn't know that they had officially left the committee. I know that the EPA did have an official representative on the standards committee for some time, and if that person resigned, they hadn't let me know.
Well, Michael, they're not on the current list. Is that an omission, or did they actually give you notice?
No, we have not received any notice of their departure, so there must be an error on the list.
Oh, okay. Might want to update that for the purpose of people knowing where EPA stands on this. Actually, if you could send me a list, email me a list, and maybe send it to the whole committee with the actual members, because
yes,
it's necessary to know that for purposes of handling a standard.
Absolutely, we'll do that. So moving down the list, we have Stan Palmer.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I agree with the comment from the other board members about extending the approval of the voting process for 30 days.
Thank you for that input. And then we have an alternate on the committee, Michael Keys, who spent a lot of time working on the subcommittees. You have any comments, Michael?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I would support Tom's comments in the sense, Tom Reddick's comments, that the Food Modernization Act is one of the examples that should be revisited. Also, for the social committee, the EPA has just come out with 6 changes to its environmental protection. That should be so revisited, although it's not pertinent necessary to the economic subcommittee.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, Mary?
No, there aren't at this time.
Okay. Do you have any? Don, do you have any closing comments?
No, other than to thank everyone who tuned in for your interest in the standard, and to encourage you to provide comments, especially on the economics criteria. I'm certainly looking forward to learning a lot from the comments.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Don, for both your participation in this process and for your presentation today. And just remind everyone of a couple of things. First is that we'll have another webinar next week. That'll be March 4th on the it's a repeat of the introduction to the draft standard. And please, if you missed that, it's an opportunity to see it. And if you know anyone who should know about that, please let them know. We'd like to have them participate. Draft standard can be downloaded, and the public comment form can be requested. And there are a variety of ways you can help with the development of this standard. One is to provide public comments. 2 is to participate in the pilot. 3 is participate in this process of developing the standard. And 4th is making a charitable contribution to Leonardo Academy. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. You can contact me or Mary for additional information. And we've covered the questions, so with that, I'll give everyone one last chance to ask a question, and then we'll close our session for the day.
We're going to go back to Tom Reddick.
Okay.
One quick question, Michael. I've been seeing some draft comments that are in a Word document listing the specific Excel cell, and I'm wondering, for folks who just aren't conversant with Excel and how to handle it, is a submission of comments that are coded to your Excel but in a Word form deemed an admissible comment? Because from my perspective, remember how we did SCSO2, all we're going to do is cut and paste anyway, and these are all Microsoft Word programs. So what's your thoughts on that, Michael?
Well, I guess our strong preference is to have them in the spreadsheet. So our goal is so that committee members are ultimately in a position to be able to read across on a line and see the different alternative proposed resolutions to comments that are made. So we would really prefer if comments are provided in the spreadsheet.
But from my understanding, it doesn't make really, you're going to cut and paste them out of Excel, or you're going to cut and paste them out of Word into a big Excel. It's got all the comments, so I'm not sure why it would cause any heartburn, but I'll let you reply to that last, just basic.
If anyone is having problems working with the Excel form, please feel free to give me a call, and I can either walk them through it or work with the Word document to put it into the Excel form.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Thank you, Mary. Anything else? Well, we really appreciate all of your participation today, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Michael, for organizing.
No problem.
Take care.